No, there's no sound coming through this.
So why don't we just do that?
What? Okay. No, no.
We are live. Stream working. You try to like my company. Probably a good indicator of how you can do the race. Because the race is supposed to work.
Yes, it is.
Really taking that weight. Yeah. For the sync that we managed to break.
Ow. Idiot. Smacked myself in the face with my headphones. Hasn't. It's just showing this thing. Maybe. Well, let's see what happens when this goes away. Unless their stream is frozen. I would feel like they would be speaking about this though. We only have one person watching. It is you. It's also still before the session starts, so there we go, they're back now. It's pouring still. This doesn't show you how long you've got left of it. It's quite difficult. We'll go to the breakaway as soon as this ends. And we'll fix our mics. Because you have to activate the mics. It's very dark. I'm just saying the second practice review is very dark. Yeah, that's fine. Safety cars running laps on track at the moment. Conditions look tough but not impossible given the schedule. I reckon clock will start at top of the hour. Although whether anyone will go out or be allowed to remains to be seen.
Surely they'll let them practice because the race is not smooth. It's not that heavy.
Well, yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. This is what I want to see. How much is actually standing water on the track? It's very wet, but there's a bit drier. It's raceable. It's drivable.
We have 9 people watching.
Cool. It's boring. Should be ending in a few minutes. Just watching and waiting for it to end.
Because I started at quarter 2 and it's 14:30. It's not just before.
Mhm.
Would you like to start or would you like to start?
You can start.
So what are we going to talk about?
Nothing. It's boring. I do. Mhm. Yeah, I can.
So do you know what to do?
Go to the breakaway.
So when it's done, you'll go what? Can you just do it? Just go to the break.
Yes, you go.
Back
Well,
to the in-house studio.
yeah. I'll leave it on there so we can see
I'm going to.
comments and stuff. Yeah. What was your comment yesterday? I didn't see it. Because I didn't have the stream up. What was the comment?
Hmm?
What was your comment? Uh, they're not going out anytime soon. No.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Motorsports. By Forever Sports, I suppose. We have just started practice 3. We are now just starting the session, and unfortunately, nobody is doing anything because it is pouring in Singapore. The conditions not safe for driving yet, although they have started, obviously, the practice session, but it doesn't look like the pit lane is open for anybody to go out. So fortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to get many laps in right now, so we're going to have to talk about other things.
A few minutes ago, we had the safety car running around the track, having a look at the conditions, and they have decided that obviously it is not suitable for running just yet. The pit lane is open, but I think it will still be a while until we see cars out on track.
So 59 minutes left of the practice session still to go, but none of the drivers look like they're in any hurry to get out onto the track. Just looking at a shot here of Max Verstappen out inside his pit chatting to Christian Horner, who all seems to be in smiles and doesn't seem to be too concerned, which is a bit bizarre considering the current allegations obviously against Red Bull and potentially I think the other team being Aston Martin this weekend with their FIA regulations breach. So we'll probably have to see how that pans out this weekend. Of course, big major story that's developing there. But in terms of practice so far, going through the whole pit lane, no teams look like they're in any hurry to get their cars out. Nothing is ready to go. No drivers are inside their cars. It's just looking like it's a very wet day for practice.
Yes, typical Singapore. I mean, we've seen this in multiple other years here at this track. Uh, Often we come here during monsoon season, so that's not necessarily the best time to go out racing, but hopefully we'll get some running today.
Yes. Currently looking at the car of Charles Leclerc, who obviously came second in practice yesterday, practice 2, just behind his teammate Carlos Sainz. So Ferrari yesterday finishing practice 2 in 1 and 2. So we're very interested to see how the Ferraris do this weekend.
Yes.
Obviously, this circuit it favours the Ferrari car a bit more than the Red Bull car with it being so tight. But should the race be in these sort of conditions, and they should be allowed to race on such a wet tyre, you would have to start thinking, or Max Verstappen maybe is the bigger favourite for this sort of race simply because of how good he is on the wets.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting, at least what this practice does do if cars do go out in these conditions and on the wet, which I'm sure if they're allowed to do so, they will. It should give them quite a good indication of what we could expect tomorrow, because the race, of course, is scheduled to have some rain as well. So
Yes.
hopefully, but supposedly should be encountering some rain as well. So,
Well, as well as qualifying today, we are expecting rain as well. So hopefully it's not as wet as it is right now. Otherwise, we won't be able to get much running.
yeah.
But yes, let's see what happens.
I'm currently looking at the pit lane. Lots of puddles. The rain is still coming down. It doesn't look to be too heavy.
I have seen worse.
But what it does look to be is that it's set. It doesn't look like it's going anywhere, which I think is what the teams will probably start to look at, and they'll be monitoring the weather patterns. Um, but it certainly doesn't look like any team is ready to go out on the track yet. It doesn't look like the pit lane.
There's no activity at the moment, yeah.
So currently just sort of waiting here, seeing what happens. Lots of crowd. Lots of the crowds have pulled in, sitting there, all tied up in the rain, sort of waiting for anything to happen. But unfortunately, I think they're going to be a little bit disappointed for a few minutes at least, because well, there's very little happening in terms of pit lane, in terms of racing. So we're just going to have to wait, I suppose, until such time a team would like to go out into these sort of conditions. But given
Unfortunately, a lot of the teams don't really want to run the risk, especially right before qualifying. So they'd rather do reduced running with a little bit of run plans in the rain rather than taking a massive risk of running too much and crashing into the wall.
so unfortunately, it's just a matter of waiting really for a team to take a chance and go out into the rain and get some practice at least in the wet because all the teams should be doing that. It does give a little bit of practice for that sort of scenario. But as Reece says, it's a scenario where you don't really want to risk, especially so close to qualifying. You don't want to risk taking your car out there and risk a slide into the wall and then doing major repairs and trying to get your car ready for qualifying session.
Especially at a track like this with very little to no runoff.
Yes, and also you'd have to wonder if you're going to be so cautious about your run, is it really going to be worth your practice? Because if you're going to go around the track the whole time, very much staying off the accelerator and just basically guiding around, all you're doing is driving the course of the track, which doesn't really give you much practice in terms of a race scenario because they can do these in their sims. They know what the track is, they know where the turns are. There's not much point, and that's what you can see here. All the drivers laughing about in the paddocks.
Yeah, no one's really ready to get out at all. We might see later in the session just a little bit of running to get some a, a bit of a feel for what it might be like during quali. But other than that, I do not think we're going to get much running unless this rain eases up a bit.
Yeah. So the time is going down. They have obviously continued that. So we have got 54 minutes left of the practice session. But as we say, the team's not looking very active. They're just relaxing in the paddocks. I think you'll see this for quite a while as well. So we're going to have to talk about other things. We'll see what else happens in the session. If you're having a watch, ask us questions. Let's see what we can talk about in terms of what's happening in F1 at the moment. Of course, the big story is that of Red Bull, especially being
well, allegedly.
allegedly being accused of breaching the FIA regulations with the budget cap. So there are various penalties and consequences for having done this. Some teams are somewhat. Some teams like Toto Wolff says no, we're not getting involved, but ultimately the whole F1 world is going and saying, well, we have to look into it. I wonder which team it is. Most people for some reason think it's Red Bull. I think obviously mainly because of how good the Red Bull car may be this year. It's definitely a team that everyone seems to be looking at and seems to be saying is definitely that. Without saying that there's much bias, but we will say that Merc fans and Ferrari fans, as it would be assumed, are accusing Red Bull and saying that they've definitely in breach here, and they're sort of hoping that they're almost in breach, as it should, result in some serious fines and penalties for the team, which would suddenly make the season a completely different scenario as to what we find ourselves in now. So, what are your thoughts of the?
Well, at the moment, we don't have a lot of information to go on. We will only be hearing a uh, statement from the FIA giving a conclusion on Wednesday next week. So, unfortunately, we're just going to have to wait until then to actually find out what's happening. Uh, Christian Horner has been speaking a lot to the media and has been very upset about it, clearly. So, if that's an indicator, maybe they aren't the ones that are in breach. Um, yeah, it would be, if they are in breach, they would be legible for some big fines and possibly some big penalties on their championship points for this year, which, well, Max luckily has a very big lead in the Drivers' Championship, but it could affect their Constructors' Championship as well as all of their R&D for next year, which could affect their car.
And speaking of we currently have our feed tied in on Christian Horner, who is currently giving an interview to Sky Sports to talk. I assume one hopes about both the race conditions, the possible allegations. Maybe they'll talk about it now in practice. And whilst that's going on, we also find that the safety car's back out on track to assess the conditions again.
Still quite a lot of puddles out on track,
Yeah,
so
very, very wet.
but looking a lot better than earlier, so we may be able to get some running done. Hopefully, once cars get running, we will be able to see the conditions getting a little bit drier as the cars are basically big vacuum cleaners and shoot all of that air, all of that water up into the air and hopefully off the track.
Indeed. So hopefully it should be clearing up a little bit in terms of how they see. We've just seen the safety car go through some big puddles there. The only issues. There are some very wet spots. And there are some more dry spots, which is expected with Singapore. They do have some overhanging bridges and things.
Yes.
Some building, some high density building areas, so which would cover the rain, of course. But yeah, still none of the teams look like they're going to be too much of a rush right now. Currently looking around at the drivers that are there, we see that Massa is currently in the
Yes.
paddock.
Yeah, he was definitely a great in the rain as well. He quite enjoyed racing in the rain. As well as Nico Hulkenberg, the Aston Martin reserve driver, is there this weekend. Also, a lot of talks about him possibly getting a seat next year with all the vacancies that we have.
So it will be a very interesting F1 calendar next year, with especially when looking at the drivers for next year. Lots of turnaround the last couple of months in terms of who's going where, the controversies with certain teams with regards to contracts and not having contracts and legal disputes.
Well, that's all been tied up now, at least with Alpine and McLaren, as Alpine felt that they had um, Oscar Piastri under contract for next year, but indeed he was able to get a contract with McLaren, and the contract recognition board deemed that his McLaren contract is the one that will be held out for next year.
So we will see Piastri in a McLaren next year, which should be very interesting. They're obviously taking the spot of Daniel Ricciardo, who is without a team at the moment.
Yes.
The following season, though whether he should not be offered a contract at any team next year is still yet to be seen, because there are a few open spots, of course. Other drivers that are currently still up in the air as to whether they'll be racing next year include Mick Schumacher.
It's very dry at the moment near the pit lane where the safety car is driving, so hopefully that is an indicator that cars will be coming out soon. On the back straight, it also looked a lot drier than it was 10 minutes ago.
The track does look a lot drier. Safety car seems to be coming in. It looks a lot better than it was, and what we did also see was that Ferrari engineers were busy sweeping up their pit lane and removing the water from the exit. So
we currently have a yellow flag in sectors 1 and 2, which might mean that we have a sweeper just trying to remove some water off the track. So hopefully we will get some running soon.
Indeed. So teams seem to be sort of
people are putting away their umbrellas as well. So
I think the rain is stopping at Singapore. We are seeing a bit of a stop in the rain. Doesn't seem to be too much activity from the teams yet, but I'm sure you will start seeing in the next 5 minutes maybe some preparations being made to take teams out. And we are currently 18 minutes left of the session, so hopefully we should have about 40 minutes worth of practice.
Yes.
To go and see how the teams are doing. And indeed, as you say, we do have stewards out on track with sweeps. They are sweeping away the big puddles of the track, but the track does seem a lot drier than it has been.
Yes, at this track we've been quite fortunate. They have quite a lot of good drainage here, so the water does run off quite quickly, as we have seen in the past. So hopefully, yes, as I keep saying, we'll see some running very soon.
So currently looking in the Williams pit, we've got
Alex Albon.
Attaching to his engineers. Christian Horner still giving a long interview here, which is also interesting, which is just now ended as well.
Alex Albon has got a special helmet for this weekend, which was designed by an orphanage in Singapore. He is from Singapore, Singapore heritage, so he's going to be auctioning off that helmet at the end of the race weekend, and all the proceeds will be going to that orphanage, which is brilliant.
Yes, it's fantastic, as I say. And Albon likes doing a lot of this sort of work as well, which we know. Currently looking now at some of the celebrities that are in attendance. We've got Goldie, DJ and music producer. Can't say I've heard of him. Have you?
No, I have not.
But I'm sure he looks very flash with his very big gold wings, etc., etc.
And his grills in.
But it's a rather interesting look. We've got Nicholas Latifi here, who we're looking at, who has lost his seat at Williams.
Yes, for next year. We think that either Nick de Vries is going to be coming into that seat, or possibly Mick Schumacher if he gets released from the Ferrari Driver Academy, which there are a lot of talks about at the moment.
So potentially lots of big driver movement for next season. To say the potential for Mick still to stay, for Daniel Ricciardo to move somewhere else, or leave Formula One, Hulkenberg to come back.
Well, Daniel Ricciardo has been saying that he has been looking, but will only accept a team offer if he feels it is the right move for him. He might actually just take a sabbatical for a year, possibly become a reserve driver for the likes of Mercedes or one of the other teams, but we will have to wait and see.
Unfortunately, I think the current, I suppose, scenario around Daniel Ricciardo is you'd have to wonder if he does take a year sabbatical, would he actually go back into Formula One? Because we've seen a lot of Formula One races obviously stop their racing after many years, and they seem to go into other sports as well. So it'll be interesting to see whether he does stay in Formula One. I think, as you say, he does want to stay in Formula
Oh
One.
yes, he's very passionate about Formula One.
He just wants the right offer. He wants good. I think basically
He's looking for a competitive team rather than
yeah.
being stuck where he was at McLaren.
I think at the end of the day, it's also I think he's seen that he's received a bit of a lack of support from his team. And I think that's probably one of the big factors that's playing into what his decision is for next year. Should he be offered at least a position at teams, is whether or not he's actually going to feel supported by that team, whether they're going to back him, and they're going to believe in his driving, etc.
I think one of the only teams that definitely has its door closed is possibly Alpine. I would be very surprised if I see him going back there after he ended his contract with them quite shortly.
So currently we're just looking at the championship progress in terms of total points between the teammates Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Obviously not too far away from each other, with Carlos Sainz on 187 and Charles Leclerc on 219.
Yes. Charles Leclerc has definitely been dominating his teammate this year. Carlos Sainz, I don't think as comfortable with the car as Charles Leclerc is, but hopefully Carlos will be able to get to grips with it this weekend. He has been showing that he has a lot more dominance. He has topped the timesheets in practice 2.
I think it's what is interesting is you do find Charles Leclerc has lost out to Carlos Sainz in these sort of circuits. To be fair, where you've seen Carlos Sainz tends to do quite well in these more
high risk. Yes.
high risk tracks, which is quite an interesting concept because it should mean that Carlos Sainz takes a little bit more risks in terms of taking the apex a bit closer to the wall, etc. Just taking things a little bit wider just to go through and try and get a little bit faster around the circuit, which is quite interesting.
Well, I think Carlos is more open to taking bigger risks. Charles is thinking more of the long-term championship battle, whereas Carlos is trying to prove himself within Ferrari and trying to fit in his team. He has had quite a few big crashes this year as well, so we have seen that element of risk that he has been taking.
It's just sad that Charles Leclerc obviously started thinking about his championship thing a little bit later on because he was taking risks early on and did find himself in the wall a couple of times from both technical errors but also a couple of times his own driver errors as well. So
at the moment we're able to see on screen one of the weather radars. There's a big front of clouds either moving away or towards the track. We couldn't really see where it was moving, but hopefully it is moving away so we can get some running.
It did say right next to it that no rain is expected
Oh, great.
from the clouds there. So hopefully we shall see some racing right now. But in the meantime, we are going to read you the FIA statement that has been made on the big controversial allegations that have been made this weekend. It says, the FIA is currently finalizing the assessment of the 2021 financial data submitted by all Formula One teams. Alleged breaches of the financial regulations, if any, will be dealt with according to the formal process set out in the regulations. The FIA notes significant and unsubstantiated speculation and conjecture in relation to this matter and reiterates that the assessment is ongoing and due process will be followed without consideration to any external discussion.
Yes, which is what we want to hear. We don't want the FIA to be taking or becoming biased from what's happening in the media, as we know the media can be quite biased, especially towards Red Bull at the moment, after what happened at the end of last year's season. So all we can hope for is that it's dealt with properly and swiftly.
Exactly. And the interesting thing to note from that little statement that they've made is that it has very, very little information, if we're honest.
Yes.
About any sort of types of. I mean, we know that it's a budget cap.
Yes.
But that's about the extent of the information.
They don't say which teams they believe are in breach.
There's no qualify? Any sort of indications to when they will also be releasing?
Well, they have released a statement saying that they will be finalizing everything on Wednesday and releasing a statement then.
As I get informed by my more informed one on Wednesday, that seems to be there. But just going off of that, we're not going to be hearing anything more about it really this weekend, I don't think, in terms of otherwise just the investigations will continue. So we are just at about the 40 minutes left in the session, but drivers do seem to be making their way back to the cars.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see some drivers in cars soon. It looks like teams are getting ready. Steering wheels are out. Hopefully we see some wheels being put on soon and drivers out on track in the next few minutes, we hope.
Yeah, as we have seen, some teams have been drying out the pit lane, the exit for them, trying to make sure that it's nice and dry for them as well. There's a yellow flag in all sectors. As I say, we still have stewards on track that are currently sweeping away the track, but what will obviously probably happen is once those stewards are off the track, we'll probably see the safety car go back out there with assess conditions one more time.
Yes.
And then we should hopefully get a green flag from safety car's assessments, and we should have some practice. But yes, currently
quite a little graphic there of Mick Schumacher, just giving a bit of information about him, where he was born, the languages that he speaks, and then under the section that says hero, it says dad, which I think is very cool.
Yes. Very few racing drivers in Formula One can go and say that. Obviously, Max Verstappen being another one who could possibly have that accolade, say his dad is his hero in Formula One. But it is quite unique in that we've got both Max Verstappen and of course Mick Schumacher, who's both their fathers were very popular and very good Formula One drivers. Obviously, Mick Schumacher is being a bit of a different level to Max Verstappen's father, but I think Mick Schumacher really desperately trying to fill his father's shoes, which is always going to be almost a near impossible task.
Oh yes, I don't think it's going to be very easy to live up to the likes of Michael Schumacher, obviously a legend of our sport. So, but hopefully we do see him in a seat next year. I would be very sad if we do lose him. Hoping that either Williams gives him a seat or Haas extends his contract.
We currently have a sweeper out on track, which is just going through, one assumes, hopefully the racing line.
I think that is the hairpin after the bridge.
So it is currently following what looks to be the racing line.
That is turn 2.
And, well, the problem is it is going backwards on track. But lots of people out on track trying to sweep away the puddles, but the rain has stopped. And Kevin Magnussen has got his helmet on.
Yes, getting in the car hopefully soon.
He is going to get into his car soon, so we should be seeing some racing, some practice at least.
We can see Mick Schumacher in the background as well, putting his balaclava on, getting ready as well.
The cars are now getting ready and prepped, which is always very good to see. We should hopefully now start to get some practice, which is exactly what we should like. So hopefully we can bring you some more information about what's actually happening out on track soon. So currently we are just waiting for the officials to get off track to sweep away the water.
Yes.
We will inform you as we hear, but for now we just continue to wait.
Well, if we do have some wet weather running this weekend, especially tomorrow in the race, it could work out quite well for Max Verstappen, who could, by points, take the championship this weekend. He needs to outperform Charles Leclerc by 22 points in the race tomorrow, as well as his teammate by, I can't remember the amount of points, but I think it was about 13 or so, and then he could statistically take the championship.
Yeah, so statistically it can happen. The likelihood is very unlikely, because obviously Charles Leclerc, should he finish the race, should finish within the top 5.
Yes, and this is also quite a difficult track to overtake on, as it is very thin.
Yes, exactly, and obviously Perez should also, again, finish within the top 10, which means that Max Verstappen will not get those gaps that he needs to win the Drivers' Championship. But should he win this weekend and win the next race, it is, I believe,
highly likely you could take it the next race.
Next, he does win the Drivers'
Yes.
Championship. So,
yes, and he has also 3 more races to win, and then he beats Michael Schumacher's all-time record of race wins in the season. So quite a lot of records being broken this season, which is quite good.
And of course, Max Verstappen turning 25 years old yesterday, which means that he's achieving these records quite a young age still, with lots of years left in his racing career. So the types of records that you could possibly see broken by Max Verstappen, there's quite a few
Yes, I mean, I do believe that we are going to see quite a lot of records broken in the next few years, purely because of the amount of races that we are having in a season, as well as the types of cars that we're racing now, could lead to one dominant team, as we've seen in the past 8 years with Mercedes. So we may get another eight consecutive championships from one team, whether it be Ferrari, Mercedes again, or Red Bull.
Hopefully we don't.
Yes,
Hopefully
it
we
would be
don't
nice to
see
see.
consecutive championships by many teams. We'd like to see some more competitiveness in terms of the Formula One sport. We'd like
Yes,
to see, you know,
that is why they have changed the regulations completely for this year in order to promote closer racing
exactly.
between teams.
So I think, as I said, the first season of a brand new car and a whole new setup is always going to be a one that could go either way. Either way, it could be very, very close, or you could have one team that just nailed it straight away from the get-go. What you will see, however, is that the next season you should see much closer racing because everyone will see, okay, well, look, that's what worked, that's what didn't work. Now we know for the next season, people are putting research and development into the next season's car, and then you're going to see a situation where you'll hopefully see Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes all right and congested, and just every race is just whoever's better on the day in terms of the driver more than the car. Hopefully, just
Yes,
so we see some proper racing, and hopefully teams like McLaren and Alpine can also develop their cars further and also provide those dark horse moments in some Grand Prix that we've seen in the past.
yes,
So should be very interesting. Makes for a very interesting season next season. Obviously, you only got six races left for this season, but it is more or less done and dusted that Red Bull should win the constructors championship and Max Verstappen should win the drivers championship. It's just simply because Red Bull has just been a different level to everybody else.
yes. Obviously, we will have to wait until next week's decision from the FIA to hear if Red Bull were in breach of any regulations, especially the cost cap. But we will have to wait until then. Pit exit will open at 6:30 local time, so that is in the next 4 minutes. Yes.
Actually, well, the exact amount of time is 3 minutes and 40 seconds. It will open up. So hopefully we shall see some good practice laps. It will be interesting as to what the teams go out on. Are they going to trust their dry tires straight away? The track is
I
excellent
think we
dry
will
run.
see some intermediate running first until the cars can dry up the track a bit, and then maybe we'll see some soft tire running.
So all of the drivers are now getting ready. We can see Albon right now preparing himself, about to put his balaclava on.
Just taking some good shots of his helmet at the moment, which has been designed by the kids at an orphanage in Singapore. I did say earlier that he is of Singapore heritage. That was incorrect. He is actually Thai, which is why he has the big elephant on the side of his helmet, which is a very symbolic animal in Thailand.
So currently looking at the Williams garage, yeah, everyone's getting ready.
Looks
Uh,
much more dry than earlier. We don't see the torrential downpour coming down anymore.
and the crowds in Singapore seem to be returning to their seats as well because they know the racing is about to start happening again. So they're starting to fill up their grandstands again. So cannot wait to
Yes,
see
2 minutes 30 seconds until the pit lane
research
opens.
done again. Just looking at yesterday's times from the practice two, obviously we hit some 142s yesterday in practice two, which is a little bit quicker than practice one.
Yes, I
Uh,
don't know if we'll be able to see any of those times getting beaten today with the current conditions,
exactly.
but you never know. It might dry out enough and we can see some quali simulations going on.
And the interesting is if it should rain in between this session and qualifying, what sort of times we'll see, and what could qualifying turn into? Because obviously qualifying sessions are much shorter than practice sessions, so teams can't afford to just simply sit in the pits and wait
Yes,
for the rain to
and if
subside.
we do get a wet quali session, we may get some outliers. We may see the likes of the Williams getting promoted into Q3 uh, because a lot of the cars act a lot differently in the rain.
Exactly. So almost as I said, we don't want the rain to spoil the fun, but what it does do is if there is racing in the rain
It does
for
shuffle up the
qualifying,
grid quite nicely.
it does make it a very interesting qualifier. It then also has the track transforming every minute because if it should rain in the beginning for a couple of minutes but then stop, you're going to have some teams going out in the intermediate, you're going to have some teams trying out tries later on in the session, you'll have some very late qualifying times that could be significantly better than other qualifying times done in the session. could see the likes of big teams go out early and not be able to get a decent time in later on and be knocked out early on in the qualifying. So the weather does make it rather interesting. Should you obviously have racing still, so that we don't have any red flags on any points. But
45 seconds left until the session starts. We've just seen Charles Leclerc getting into the car, as well as we now see Lance Stroll in his car. 30 seconds until the pit lane opens. George Russell is also in his car. So it looks like we are going to see a very busy pit lane when it opens. Everyone trying to get as much running as possible in the last 30 or so minutes of the session.
I think one of the main reasons for that is because whilst the track is still wet, they're going to want to try and send their drivers out.
Yes, and get some data for the race.
So that's sort of a scenario just before it dries up, because I think the track will dry up quite quickly once you get all these cars on.
Oh, yes.
Given the fact that, as you say, they are just basically racing vacuums. So we will see the cars go out onto track on intermediates, probably try and get a couple of laps done on that, and they'll come back into the pits and swap for.
And the pit lane is now open.
The pit lane is, as you said, now open. The teams starting to see some movements. Mercedes don't seem to be as on top of wanting to get out there as some of the other teams.
Hamilton's still out of his car, yes.
Hamilton's still out of his car. He is getting ready to get into the car, but all other teams have been inside their cars for a while, inside the cockpits, been ready to go out. I reckon you'll probably see the lower teams, obviously the Williams and the Haas, probably get out there first, and the Aston Martin.
Possibly the McLarens as well. They did not have the greatest running yesterday, with Lando Norris in, I think, 11th place that it was, and Daniel Ricciardo quite a bit further down the grid, I think in 16th. Not having the weekend that they currently want.
Yeah. So McLaren really looking to hopefully improve in this session right now, because as they're going into qualifying with the current times they've been putting in, really looking quite weak, to be honest, this week.
We're currently looking at the air intake of Pierre Gasly's car, which caught on fire yesterday for some unknown reason. We still have not had a statement as to why that burst into flames, but it was quite a bizarre failure that we saw on his car during practice 2 yesterday. As he pulled into the pits and they were starting to wheel him back into the pit box, the air intake just shot out quite a large flame. Not from the front of the air intake, but from the side, which is something that I've never seen before.
It was quite bizarre. Currently looking at pit lane, it is obviously open now, but no cars are going out as of yet. I think at this point we're waiting for somebody to, we're playing, I think, a game of chicken here now.
Yes.
I think teams are now waiting to try and say, well, somebody else can go out there and get all the water into their car first, and we'll follow, so that we get a little bit of a drier track. So I say in these scenarios, you usually see the lower teams go out because they can't really afford to wait that long. And as
yes.
We have what looks to be an AlphaTauri.
Pierre Gasly is out, yes, on track. So we see a big spray coming out from behind his car as he is on the full wet tires, which is probably the best idea to just get a feel of what the track is like at the moment. Obviously being very green now with all the rubber from yesterday's running being washed away. So it could be very slippery out there.
Yes. And what will be interesting is I reckon you'll see most teams wait for Gasly to get around the track once. At least most of it gets past some of the track to go and see how it's doing, and people will assess the situation and decide whether or not they want to send their cars out as well. Lots of spray coming up from Pierre Gasly through turn 6 and through turn 7.
But it seems like he has at least enough grip for now. Obviously, in the section that he is in at the moment, in the beginning of sector 2, there's still quite a lot of big puddles, which is causing him to slide around a bit.
Yes, so going through the very sharp corners here, he is very, very timid in terms of entering those areas. There are big puddles, but the car seems to be coping all right. So I think you'll probably see some cars come out and just have an attempt. It is very wet still in some sections, but it will dry up quite quickly with the cars out on track.
Yes, as he comes into the hairpin in turn 13, back onto the back straight, DRS will obviously be disabled at the moment with wet weather running. If it does dry up enough, they will enable DRS. Now into turn 14.
Yes. So the last section of the track doesn't seem to be nearly as wet as the second sector.
Yes.
The second sector is, I think, the bigger issue right
Still quite a lot of spray coming off the back of him, but that is to be expected as he is the only car out on track at the moment.
Still no other cars out on track. As we said, this is basically guinea pig Gasly right now, and all the other teams will be watching very closely to see how the track fares. And now he's going through the much drier part of the track. The very last few corners of the track is very dry. So it's quite interesting, obviously, that you go out on the wet tires and you're going into the very dry section, which sort of causes a little bit of a small problem in terms of the tires just overheating.
Yes, you overheat your tires, which especially with the wet tires, because they very similar to our normal road car tires, and when you go on dry track with it, they do seem to overheat quite a lot and melt the tread that is in the tire, so you don't want it to get too hot.
Exactly. So it means that that last section there causes a little bit of issue in terms of trying to overheat the tires. So it's basically a race of trying to get the tires back onto the wet so they can cool them back down again. And as we see, a couple of cars are now
We have
track.
Tsunoda and Bottas now as well on track.
Yes, so you'll now start to see most of the cars come out on track because some teams have obviously seen what Gasly's done in the first out lap and said
It's already looking a lot drier through that corner that he has just come through. Still in this section, it is very wet. But he has set the first purple sector of the session. We will see a lot more purple sectors, I'm sure, as he is the only one putting in a fast lap at the moment. Yes, we have a McLaren as well as another.
Ricardo is out on track, and we've got both Aston Martins out on track now, and I think the other Alfa Romeo has also joined.
Yes, of Guan Yu Zhou.
Yes, so now all of our smaller teams, and unfortunately I'm going to pile McLaren into a smaller team this season.
Unfortunately, this season they do count as one of the lower down teams. Unfortunately, we were expecting a bit more from them this year, but.
So currently we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tracks, 8 cars on track, and Gasly is about to come into the final sector here, which is obviously a bit of a drier sector. Then he'll finish his lap and give us the first lap time of practice 3.
So right now is the fastest time from yesterday's running. He's already surpassed that, just showing how much slower the cars are in the rain, obviously with reduced grip.
But what we will see is that these times will be beaten not just by milliseconds and hundreds of seconds, but you'll be seeing them beaten by a couple of seconds at a time over these next 10 minutes, because you'll see the track dry up, and as it dries up, drivers obviously go through each section a lot quicker. They find a lot more grip. As Gasly's just crossed the line there in 2 minutes 09.8, which I say makes it about 20 seconds, 25 seconds slower than the race times we saw yesterday's. So much slower track, obviously, in the wet, but at least we do have our first times lap with Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri. And now all of the cars seem to be entering the track, and we have a relatively busy track now.
Looking a lot drier into turn 1 at the moment. Don't see the big puddles that we saw the safety car going through earlier on. Valtteri Bottas just giving some feedback saying that the track is okay, no issues with standing water, and that he thinks that the Inters might be the better choice of tyres at the moment.
Which is very interesting, which means that some teams here that haven't gone out, such as the Red Bulls and the Ferraris, may well just swap to Inters then, and probably come out on those to try and set a few lap times in that. It's a bit of a harsh one for the teams that have just come out, who reckon that they've just come out on wets. They might well have just come out there to do an outlap and say, no, actually, the Inters are fine to go and do this. As we see a Ferrari come out on full wet still.
Yes.
It looks to be the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, I think. We'll confirm that. As we follow the McLaren of Ricardo, who's already going quicker than Gasly, set a new purple sector. We have currently got just about 21 and a half minutes left of this session to go. I think you'll see a mad rush in these last 20 minutes as well, in terms of just trying to get as many laps out on track just before qualifying later, because qualifying is likely to be in similar conditions to this, so cars will really want to try and get out there and have a feel for the track in these sort of conditions. Now following Ricardo still, and we are now going to see a Red Bull of Max Verstappen come out onto the track. And he is currently rocking the Inters. So that looks to be the first car on Inters out on the track. So that will be very interesting to see. Ricardo currently here did set a purple first sector, but the second sector, as we said, which is the wetter sector, he did not, which is interesting to see. So Ricardo likely to put a faster time in than Gasly because he comes into the last section, which is again a lot drier. But sector 2, being quite a wet sector, is proven to be a bit of a hard task for Ricardo to get the purple sector over Gasly. But he's just finishing up his lap now, coming into the final straight. And he should beat Gasly's time by a second or two, perhaps.
Yes, as he comes now into the last corner, down the main straight.
I'm completely wrong.
No, he is slower.
Much slower, and only done 2 minute 10. So even a whole second slower than Gasly's time.
Well, we are expecting the AlphaTauris to be quite a bit faster than the McLarens. They have been dominating McLaren all season. McLaren as well this race, running some updates on Lando Norris's car. Daniel Ricciardo not being given the updates for this weekend. As we see him sliding a bit.
Got slow as well, that he had a little bit of a slide in one of the turns where he just lost almost a little bit, almost nudging the wall there, managed to bring it back twice, almost nudging the wall, but that's probably the reason why he slowed down.
Yes, as we see some Ferrari mechanics bringing out different tyres, yes, possibly some intermediates.
Yes, I think the Ferraris are also seeing that Red Bull's Verstappen just went out on a set of intermediates, and so they're likely to think the same thing and say, you know what, we're going to send Leclerc out in intermediates as well. Currently, Norris is sitting as our top lap, our fastest lap. So we'll see how that goes for the rest of the teams now that they are out on track. Verstappen doing his out lap, so we'll be very interested to see how he fares on his Inters, as he's the first car out there on Inters, I think. So we'll see how he does.
Yes, we do apologize. At the moment, our live timing is not working, so we are trying to sort that out at the moment. But hopefully we will have that for you quite soon.
But we will give you the times as we hear them, and we will simply inform you of all the details that's happening right now. So almost all the cars are out on track, and we will definitely see some improved times now that the track is starting to dry up.
Tsunoda has now set the fastest lap. Oh, sorry, last lap.
Yes.
With Alex Albon setting at 2 minutes 11, still no faster than Pierre Gasly, yes.
But we will follow Max Verstappen very shortly just to see how his lap fares in relation to everybody else. So hopefully we should see quite an interesting qualifying, because the qualifying looks to be in similar sort of weather to this. So again, it's going to be teams where they make decisions right now as to what tyres they go out on, how much drier the track will get, people going ahead of others trying to dry the track up, and people trying to utilize the idea that other cars are taking all the wet track away. So a relatively good indicator, I hope, for what's qualifying to be later.
Yes, if we do get some wet running in qualifying, it will definitely be a very interesting qualifying session. Obviously, we've seen the Red Bulls are historically very good in the wet, so it could prove quite good for Max's weekend if he wants to try to take the title here. He doesn't seem very phased about it. All weekend, people have been asking him questions in the media pen, and he's just having his race weekend as per usual, not thinking about the championship.
Max Verstappen's been a bit more concentrated on his birthday.
Yes.
Celebrations midweek were quite good. I think it was with Lando Norris.
Yes. Yes, both out clubbing somewhere. Lots of footage being put online from people who were at the clubs. Looked like they were both having quite a good time.
Yes, and as we see now, Magnussen's putting in last lap, and Verstappen's just crossed the line now, and Verstappen has just done a 2 minutes 6.
Yes, so he now has the fastest set.
6:08. 2 minutes 6 seconds 8. 2 minutes
6 seconds. Yes.
We'll go with that. That's the one we'll go with. So Max Verstappen on his Inters have just put in the fastest lap. Charles Leclerc has, I think, entered the see how he fares as well. And we see that Gasly has just put in a faster lap again.
2 minutes 6.1.
Yes, so Gasly's just beaten Verstappen's time.
Often you see the cars that are not as fast on the straights are able to put in very good wet weather sessions because they obviously have more downforce than the faster cars, as well as they don't have as much torque in the engine so that they don't spin the wheels and they are able to just get that little bit of extra grip. As we see a replay of Nicholas Latifi locking up very badly and almost going into the wall. Nicholas Latifi currently in 12th position. We don't know how many cars are in track, if that is the last on track as per usual for Latifi, or...
Latifi unfortunately doing Latifi things. Interesting thing is Charles Leclerc coming out of the pits.
Almost hitting the pit wall.
As he came out, took a little bit of a wide turn there.
So currently at the moment, our runners are Gasly, Verstappen, Sainz, Mick Schumacher, Norris, Albon, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Guan Yu Zhou, Bottas, and Perez and Leclerc. The rest of the people are in the pits at the moment. The two fastest times of Gasly and Verstappen, both on intermediates, everyone else on wets.
Which is why I think you'll start to see everybody's trying to change to intermediates. Not necessarily trying to get fast laps now, because that's why you still see some of them are still out on the wets, just to get a feel for the wet tyre, obviously. But you'll start to see, I think, a lot more cars come into the pits now to try and swap for inters, because obviously inters are the fastest tyre right now.
As Verstappen has once again put in the fastest lap, 2 minutes 3 seconds, 2.8 seconds faster than Gasly's last lap.
So, as we said already, you're starting to see these times start to improve by multiple seconds at a time.
And we're seeing a lot more people putting on intermediates, a lot more people coming out of the pits at the moment, trying to get as much intermediate running as this could possibly be the most accurate as to what they will be doing in qualifying.
Exactly. So, following now, Perez, who is trying to outdo Verstappen's lap, is currently doing
2 personal bests.
sectors for himself. Seems to be also, it's still quite wet in some sections. Just you see the cars slide about a little bit. Obviously, these drivers know how to control it though.
Obviously not taking huge risks at the moment during this session. As we see a Haas coming out the pit lane.
We follow Charles Leclerc's lap here. He's obviously putting in personal best because he has not put a time in yet. But we'll be interested to see where he fares with the Red Bulls on his first lap, because he's also on the Inters. But as I say, all the Inter drivers that have put in laps have gone faster than all of the wet drivers. Only being 3 of them, but it is Verstappen, Gasly, and Perez who have gone quicker than all the rest of the field so far on their Inters. And the gap between the Inters and the wet currently stands at about 4 or 5 seconds. So the Inters being a much quicker time, of course.
Leclerc is about to finish up his lap here. Sorry to talk over you, but he has currently gone 4th with a 2 minutes 3 seconds. So at the moment, not up to par with the Red Bulls and the AlphaTauri of Pierre Gasly.
You see Mick Schumacher coming into the pits doing
Does he slide here? A little bit in this pit box, slightly missing the mark, but going on to intermediate tyres now, so we should see some intermediate running from him. He has locked up his brakes to miss the Ferrari and the Mercedes, possibly a loose wheel on his car.
So looking at the tyres there, they're interesting what happened there.
Yes, they're busy rolling him back into his pit box at the moment, so we should hopefully find out what the cause for that was.
Sainz has now started a hot lap.
Track getting drier and drier. For a second I thought he was on mediums, but he is on the intermediates.
I think now what you're going to see is, I reckon, if we're going to go by anything yesterday's practice, I reckon you're about to see Sainz pushing the fastest lap right now. He's obviously been doing very well this weekend in terms of his times.
But let's see if he can put a lap together in the wet. That is what the real question will be for this weekend, as he is 0.3 slower than Verstappen's time at the moment in the first sector.
We will see how he does in the second sector, because that is the sector that seems to be drying up a lot quicker, which is, I think, where now you're going to see people trying.
As well as we have seen the Ferrari being very quick in the second sector throughout the weekend, as it is the much more twisty sector.
So following Sainz quite closely here, it's just past the minute mark of his lap. We'll see how he fares as well. Alonso also doing a fast lap.
setting a personal best for himself, as we see a lot of intermediate tyres at the top of the time boards at the moment.
Gasly still holding his own at the top there, also pushing a quicker lap for himself, and so is Verstappen at 2.2 now.
2 minutes 2 minutes 2 seconds 0.098, as Carlos Sainz has now set the purple middle sector.
As we predicted might happen, we said the Ferraris were quite quick in the middle sector.
As Daniel Ricciardo goes fourth ahead of his teammate Lando Norris, who is currently in sixth position. That is very interesting, as Ricciardo is on the old spec McLaren at the moment.
And Ricciardo did also beat Norris in his first practice yesterday.
Yes.
So it's going to be an interesting talk with McLaren to see how the two different McLarens fared this weekend, also given the fact that there were upgrades on Norris' car. And Sainz goes
second fastest.
Only just on 0.06 behind Verstappen. So if he just improves his first sector, I think you'll see a new fastest lap.
As we have 10 minutes left of the session at the moment, so if the track does dry up enough, we may be able to see in the last few minutes some dry tyres, but that seems quite unlikely at the moment with the amount of standing water still on the track.
I think the issue is that for all that the second sector is drying up, it is still quite wet. So for all that everyone, the last sector is certainly a lot drier. It's almost probably worth having dry tyres just for the last sector, but the middle sector is quite wet still. So I don't think you'll see any dry tyres anytime soon.
We're currently seeing a replay of what happened with Mick Schumacher, so let's see what the issue was here. No, unsafe release. They were not happy with one of the tyres on there. Let's see which one they... Looks like the right rear, yes, was not tightened properly. Taking multiple tries of it to get it tightened on, still not happy with it. Take 5 and 6, still not happy. Finally, they are happy with the tyres and they are going to release him.
Doesn't look to be happy actually. Shakes his head afterwards. So it's interesting that
Verstappen has currently set the first and second fastest sectors, so we should see another fast time coming in.
Right now, at 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 0.9. So we'll go see how Verstappen fares with that now, as he's currently putting in 2 purple sectors on Leclerc's time already. So
Verstappen seems to really like the wet weather running. His father used to send him out when he was younger in the wet on slick tyres to test his agility and just hone in his skills.
Yes, Verstappen should go quicker.
Yes, he does.
2 minutes, 1 minute 59.4.
As there's yellow flag. And it's green again.
Green again, so I think somebody's just
gone into one of the runoff areas. As Alonso goes third with 2 minutes 2 seconds 0.1. 2.6 seconds off the current session leader, Max Verstappen, as he seems to still be pushing possibly on another lap.
What is interesting is we've not really seen any of the Mercs this entire session, as we're now following Russell trying to put in a time. His first time, as he's not put in one yet. And Hamilton's also on his out lap, so the Mercs are about to actually put in their first times for the day, which we haven't seen, so coming out very late into the session. Also on Inters.
Not putting in an exceptionally good lap, as he is currently now passing Max's time, so he should fall quite far down.
It seems to be, unless the graphic's wrong, because I'm fairly certain I saw him on intermediate.
Yes, I think the graphic is incorrect at the moment. Yes. Mercedes yet again far off the pace of the current leaders.
Yes. 7 seconds behind the top lap there.
Quite a big jump from yesterday's session where Hamilton was the leader in practice 1. As we see, what caused the yellow flags was Alexander Albon running off into one of the runoff areas.
We're now seeing that Ferrari is tailing a Merc, is using them for speed, I think, because the Merc is also on a hot lap of Hamilton, so Leclerc seems to be sort of trailing.
And has gone half a second quicker than Verstappen, using that tow from the Mercedes down the main straight.
So a very interesting little piece of just, I suppose, driving there. So Leclerc currently 158. Just we'll call it 158.9. Verstappen's just pushing a quicker time, also literally just off of Leclerc's time at 0.001 0.02 behind Leclerc. Perez currently sitting third, Gasly fourth, Alonso, I was about to say Alonso fifth.
As Sainz puts in a 2-minute 00.4. So clearly the top three are very close to each other at the moment, with obviously Leclerc and Verstappen very much in fighting for the top spot of the session.
We're currently following Hamilton on his first out lap. We'll see how he does now.
As Vettel puts himself up into 7th place.
We have again somebody else has gone off into the runoff area in sector 2. As we have yellow flag and back to green flag very quickly. We will see now with 5 minutes left of the session what Hamilton and Russell can do, because now both of them obviously out on track to try and get a couple of laps in just before the qualifying session later. Hamilton doing much slower than the leaders, with Hamilton at second sector being 4.8 seconds slower at the moment.
Still quite a lot of standing water in certain sections of the track, so we will not see any dry tyres being run this session.
Interestingly enough, the Haas of Magnussen has gone into 6th, and Schumacher gone into 11th in the times, so Magnussen putting in some decent times.
As Hamilton locks up his front right, just going wide, missing the apex in that corner.
Very slow lap here.
He's not going to beat his own teammate, I do not think. No, as he goes 19th place.
Only obviously ahead of Latifi.
6 seconds off of the pace at the moment in the wet.
I think you'll see that the Mercs will be slow in the first couple of laps, simply just because they have not come out onto track once yet. These are their first laps that they've just been doing. So I think you'll see Russell and Hamilton go around one more time, and then what would be another out lap, as it were, and then try and put another fast lap in. But if they don't improve significantly for those times, then the Mercs are heading into qualifying in 18th and 19th place in terms of the times from practice 3.
As we see Yuki Tsunoda getting a bit loose in one of the corners. Let's see what he says. He's not happy with the Mercedes in front of him, who is holding him up through the sectors on his fast lap. Holding him up quite a lot. I think that may be Hamilton, as Nicholas Latifi is in his...
Oh,
yes.
Latifi. 2 lockups, and that's what he went to. Latifi again went into the runoff area for a second time in a row. So
once again down in 20th position. I think that is his favorite position.
There was a pit lane incident involving Mick Schumacher under investigation for an unsafe release.
Yes, that would be for the tyre not being fitted properly. They may get a monetary fine for that. They don't normally give grid penalties for unsafe releases.
But the only thing is that, given the fact that he did not actually enter the pit lane as well, they might look to say, well,
he is on quite a good lap at the moment and goes up into 9th position, 2 places behind his teammate of Kevin Magnussen.
So what you might see is that, given the fact that he did not actually enter the track and they called him back before he entered the pit lane, you might well see a little bit of leniency from the FIA, but we'll wait and see what happens.
As Hamilton goes 6th.
Yes, there you go. That's a bit of a better time.
2 minutes 1.2. Much better from Hamilton there, possibly showing the true pace now of the Mercedes in the wet, as George Russell is down in 12th position, 3.8 or 3.5 seconds off of the lead time.
We're currently following both Leclerc and Verstappen. Leclerc did do a slower first sector, but a purple second sector and a purple third sector to go top at 1 minute 57.7, as we're following Max Verstappen, who's also closely behind, currently just finishing up his third sector.
With the fastest first sector and a personal best middle sector. Let's see what he can do. No, he's slightly behind, yes, with a 158.3.
So Leclerc already more than half a second ahead of Verstappen with those recent laps now, as Verstappen toying a little bit with track limits there.
Luckily still within the lines, but yes, getting a bit slidey through there.
But interesting to see now the Ferraris and the Red Bulls are quite close together, but very competitive against each other, I think, at the moment.
Yes, as we have 1 minute and 20 seconds left of the session.
And these cars are now motoring around the track to try and get back to start another lap, I think.
I think Max Verstappen has realized now that he is not within that time. He will not be able to complete another fast lap.
Verstappen has given up on his attempt to get back round. I think Leclerc is still
Yes, Leclerc was a couple of seconds ahead of Verstappen, so he may just make that cut off as we have 55 seconds left of the session.
Yes, Leclerc still gunning it to try and get back.
So we're currently following Carlos Sainz,
A couple of other races
doing a personal best first sector.
It'll be interesting to see Carlos Sainz time here because he has been going quicker than his teammate these past two couple of practices. So
Yes, he has seemed to be a lot more comfortable in this session.
Leclerc's on the radio.
Let's see if Carlos Sainz can put in a fastest middle sector as we have seen him done earlier. Did you catch what Charles Leclerc was saying?
Unfortunately, it's very distorted sound. You can barely hear what Leclerc is saying, unfortunately.
Still waiting to see Carlos Sainz's middle sector. It's a personal best, but not a fastest middle sector.
And we're yet to see now 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second, and practice is now officially timed done. So we'll see.
We're just waiting for the last few hot laps from people.
So we're seeing the last laps now. Sainz has currently put in 2 personal bests in sector 1 and sector 2. So maybe very close to Leclerc's time, and if he manages to put a decent third sector, may well beat the time as Ricciardo goes 6th.
Ricciardo having a good session today here in the wet. Much better than Lando Norris, who is currently in 13th position, as Alonso goes into 3rd with a 1:59.
So Alonso and Sainz there goes and puts in third best time, a little bit behind his teammates.
So
Yellow flag in sector 3. This could ruin a lot of people's
fast laps here.
Fast laps if it's not into a runoff area. It's not been cleared. This is going to ruin everybody's fast laps. Somebody has spun, I think, in sector.
As Vettel goes 7th with a 2-minute 1 second .007.
Yes, the yellow flag still up in sector.
It looks like it is Pierre Gasly that has either gone off into a runoff section. It looks like he is moving again.
Green track, Gasly is moving.
As George Russell goes into 8th ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton, who is currently in 10th, 3.4 seconds off the pace for Hamilton.
Leclerc still running a fast lap. Perez just finished and not gone quicker.
We see a replay of what happens to Gasly. Just going a bit deep and into the runoff section there.
Into the runoff, and he was perfectly fine.
So, quite luckily, no incidents this session for any of the cars, which could have proved quite difficult for qualifying. Obviously have now 2 hours until qualifying, so they would be able to fix it, but you do not want to put that amount of pressure on your team right before qualifying.
Charles Leclerc looks to have given up on his lap, unless I'm mistaken, because he's going very slowly around some of these sections of the track. So it looks that we are done the last practice session.
And Yuki Tsunoda is the last of the runners to improve on his time, bring him up to 15th position.
And Leclerc finishes practice 3 in first place, Verstappen in second, and Sainz in third. So gearing up for a very interesting qualifying session.
Whether it will be dry or wet, that is yet to be seen.
But Leclerc got quite a big gap to Verstappen there near the end in terms of being in the wet, 0.5 gap, and they were in the same positions because Verstappen was literally just 15 seconds behind Leclerc in his lap time. So
as we see a replay of George Russell, track looking a lot more dry there with a big lock.
Big lock up, and he quickly spins his car around in a bit of turn off area to get back onto the track, but it doesn't really matter too much because
it is the end of the session.
As we see,
oh, Yuki Tsunoda slightly kissing the wall there.
Just slightly kissing the wall in his last lap there. So session done. Latifi as per usual in 20th. Joe Bottas 1918. The other Williams of Albon 17. Norris 16. Tsunoda 15. Schumacher in 14. Gasly 13. Hamilton and his teammate in 12th and 11th. As we see a couple of cars just finishing off their session with the practice start.
Obviously, the takeaway of the session is Charles Leclerc going fastest of everyone in the wet here. So, clearly he has gotten to grips with the car after yesterday not having as much running as his teammates due to a brake failure, as well as doing some setup changes in practice 2. As we see cars doing their practice start, waiting for Sebastian Vettel.
Sebastian Vettel about to do his practice start. Looks to be Max Verstappen coming up on the inside and coming into the second position starter to do his starting.
That is Perez, I do believe. Good start from him on the intermediates.
Just finishing off the session, all the drivers doing their practice starts.
As we see Mick Schumacher doing his.
But yes, a rather interesting session. Obviously, looking at the weather, half the session was unfortunately rained off, so most of the drivers were still in the pits. But then, obviously, once the safety car deemed it, once they deemed it safe, we saw Pierre Gasly go out into track first. He was the guinea pig for the session, determined that the track was absolutely fine for racing on, and all the drivers followed him out there. Very quickly realized within a lap or two that actually the intermediates were going to be quicker than the wets, and they went out into track.
Yes, as we now see the sun setting over Singapore after a very interesting third practice session, gearing up now for the qualifying at 3 o'clock here, South Africa time, as we see our top three for the session with Charles Leclerc in first, Max Verstappen in second, and Carlos Sainz in third.
Also interesting to say is the top two being Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen a little bit ahead of the rest of the pack. Even old Carlos Sainz as well, I'd say. So because
yes, both of them over a second over, well, Charles Leclerc over a second faster than Carlos Sainz.
But the rest of the field then going a little bit tight, and the back of the field all nice and close together. The interesting thing to note also again from this session is the McLaren of Lando Norris, the newly improved McLaren supposedly, going only in 16th, whilst his teammates in the top 10 of Ricciardo and Lewis Hamilton, the Mercedes, only in 12th, with his teammates George Russell.
As we finish off the top 10, in fourth position we have Fernando Alonso. Fifth position is Sergio Perez. Sixth, Lance Stroll. Seventh, Esteban Ocon. And eighth, Sebastian Vettel, followed closely by George Russell and Daniel Ricciardo to finish off the top 10. Very interesting to see both of the Alpines performing very well here this weekend. Also in practice 1 and 2, they showed quite a lot of pace.
But we will now catch you in the next qualifying session.
Yes, thank you for joining us. 2 hours at 3 o'clock here in South Africa.
We will join you then for that session, which looks to be something hopefully very interesting. We'll see how the weather plays out.
We hope to see quite a good battle between the Ferraris and the Red Bulls. Hopefully the Mercedes will be able to make their way into that battle. If not, we still have a very interesting qualifying session ahead of us.
Apparently, what seems to be on show right now is if the Mercs can't do it, the AlphaTauris can. So,
yes.
Or the Alpines can. I'll get the car going right. But we'll see how Alonso does, because he's been pushing in some very quick times in his practice sessions. So I reckon you might see Alonso popping himself off into
possibly the second row
again, which will be quite fun to see. But yes, we'll meet you then.
Yes.
Now, take care, and we will be back on Forever Motorsports later.
You have to stop the second stream.